What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are finally here. We're going to finally begin our coverage over Secret Invasion, the main storyline. Now, we have been covering the preludes for a very long time on this channel, but we're finally here with the main storyline. Now, we are only going to cover the first two chapters of this main storyline because when it comes to Secret Invasion and really a lot of different Marvel events, you have a lot of tie-ins that are actually very important to different Marvel events, especially when it comes to Secret Invasion. But those tie-ins take place between the main storyline's chapters. So right now we're covering the first two chapters, but before we are actually able to jump into Secret Invasion number 3, we have to cover a few more tie-ins, which honestly, those tie-ins do tell some very good stories and kind of build up what Secret Invasion was all about. Now, if you're new to the channel and you have no idea what Secret Invasion actually is, let me explain. So back in 2008, Marvel gave us Secret Invasion. It was a storyline where the Skrulls, this alien race, felt like they had the right to take over the Earth. And there was another reason. Either way, though, what they did was they began to kidnap people and began to replace those people on Earth by pretending to be those people. So for example, let's say you have a family and your wife just disappears, but then 2 days later she reappears and you're like, okay, cool, everything is normal. But it's not normal because that wife you found is not your wife. It's a Skrull pretending to be your wife. And that what happened in Secret Invasion. You just had people left and right being replaced. And of course, you had the Skrulls pretending to be the people that they have replaced. I almost said protect. Replaced. Now, things get even crazy because the heroes found out about it. Not all the heroes, but some of the key heroes found out that the Skrulls are trying to do this secret invasion. And so now you have some heroes wondering, the ones who found out, who can they actually trust? And all that distrust we saw in the preludes, they're all coming together now for this main storyline. That is why it was very, very important we covered the preludes to Secret Invasion, because now here we are with the first issue or first two chapters actually, and now all that distrust we saw at the very beginning is finally going to pay off. Now, to begin today's storyline, we actually do pick up several weeks ago in the past. Now, when we do, we actually pick up with the world finding out about the death of Steve Rogers. Because remember, at the very end of Civil War, Steve Rogers died. It was a huge thing for people in the real world, but also in the Marvel world as well, because Steve Rogers was that guy that everybody cared for. But when he died, it was a huge, huge moment. But we actually pick up at this bar. Now, when we do, we actually do see some guys right now who realize who's at the bar, and that's Dum Dum Dugan. Now, Dum Dum Dugan has been around for years in Marvel Comics. And on top of that, he was kind of like one of those people that Nick Fury and other people who work for S.H.I.E.L.D., they knew that they could trust him, and they knew that this guy would always have their back. And so, like, he's just that guy you don't mess with because a lot of people care for him, but also he'll protect you and he'll have your back no matter what. But with him hearing the death of Steve Rogers, it seems like it actually affects him so much because that's what Steve Rogers actually did to a lot of people. When he died, a lot of people kind of freaked out. And it seems like right now, so is Dum Dum Dugan. He's freaking out and he just leaves the bar after shooting the place up, how angry he is to hear that Steve Rogers is dead. Now, that is the moment you do have Dum Dum Dugan basically leave the bar. Now, when he does leave the bar, he does run into Valentina. Now, Valentina is a character that we have basically seen in the earlier chapters of our coverage over Secret Invasion. Now, with that being said, though, she is the lover of Nick Fury, the white Nick Fury, at this point in Marvel Comics. Now, here's the big thing about her, though. Right now, she's coming to Dum Dum Dugan actually looking for Nick Fury. Now, For Dum Dum Dugan, he has no idea where Nick Fury is. But the reason why she's coming to Dugan is because when it comes to Dugan, he's a close friend of Nick Fury. And so if you're trying to find the man, you go to Dugan. But this is Dugan saying he has no idea where Nick Fury is at. Because after Secret War, not Secret Wars with an S at the end of it, Secret War with no S, basically Nick Fury went underground. So nobody can find him. Nobody can. But it's Dum Dum saying like, I thought he'll be with you because you guys are lovers. I thought you guys just went ahead and ran away with each other. But this is Valentina saying, no, I can't find Nick Fury anywhere. But that is the moment we come to find out that this is not Valentina, that this is a Skrull. And you actually have her knock out Dum Dum Dugan. Now, when she does that, this Skrull is now going to pretend to be Dum Dum Dugan. And that right there is very huge because now Dugan has been replaced like most people on Earth has, because right now the Skrulls have been kidnapping people and replacing them and pretending to be those people that they have basically kidnapped. But then we actually get this moment that took place years ago. Now, we actually have seen this moment in earlier videos we did for Secret Invasion, but the reason why we're seeing it right now is because this is the main storyline of Secret Invasion. And so it is kind of important to know about this moment. But basically, this is the moment where you have the Skrulls realize that the princess was right. Because remember, in the earlier videos we did, you had the king of the Skrulls kind of ignoring all the different prophecies that were part of the Skrulls race that foretold what the Skrulls were basically go through. Because the king felt like they were all just nonsense. But the princess felt like every single prophecy would basically come true. Now, first, most of the Skrulls believed the king over the princess, but later on, some of the things that were said in the prophecy did come true. And so basically you had the Skrulls realize, okay, the princess was right and we should follow the princess. And so with that happening, right now in this moment, we're actually seeing the Skrulls saying, princess, you were right about the things that are going to happen to us. We want to follow your orders. But of course, in one of the prophecies, it said the Skrulls would basically inherit the earth. And so that is the goal of the princess, to make sure that actually does happen. But then we actually jump over to Iron Man in the present day. Now remember, Iron Man was one of the first few characters who had basically found out that the Skrulls were going around replacing people and pretending to be those people. And so with that being said, Iron Man found out because Spider-Woman brought a Skrull that was pretending to be Elektra. But now this is Iron Man telling Reed Richards and Hank Pym what in the world is going on. Because when it comes to these three guys in the room, they are the three smartest people on the earth, or three of the smartest people on the earth. But either way, it's them coming together and realizing that, oh my gosh, the Skrulls have been going around replacing people left and right, and that right there is crazy. And so with that, we have to figure out what in the world is actually going on. And so with that, you have the Skrulls, you have our heroes kind of like, okay, we have to be on our A game because we have no idea who else in our family, friends, our neighbors, whatever, could be a Skrull. But it's Iron Man saying, I felt like you guys should know about this because it's happening all over the world. And sooner or later, things are going to pop off. But then we actually jump over to the peak. Now, this is where we can say the invasion is about to happen. Like, it's about to pop off right now, and Iron Man spoke too soon. And the reason why I'm saying this because right now at the peak, which is the base for SWORD, and remember, SWORD is an organization that basically protects the Earth from space things from happening. So while you have SHIELD on the ground, you have SWORD in space. Now with that being said, right now you do have SWORD kind of realizing that a random transport ship just passed right by them, and that ship belonged to the Skrulls. Now, of course, that is a huge problem because at this point in Marvel Comics, the Skrulls are enemies. And so why in the world is a transport ship coming out of space crashing onto the earth for? Like, what in the world is really going on? But here where things get even worse. Because remember earlier, Dum Dum Dugan was basically replaced by a Skrull. And so right now, the Dugan we see on our screen on the base of Sword, that's not Dugan. That is someone else pretending to be Dugan, a Skrull. But then we actually jump back over to Iron Man, Reed Richards, and also Hank Pym. Now you do have our three characters right now kind of studying the body of the Skrull Elektra, trying to figure out more about the Skrulls, but to also try to figure out when in the world did Elektra basically get replaced by the Skrulls, because she had to be kidnapped and she was replaced. But the question right now is when and why. Now, on top of that, that is the moment you have Maria Hill call up Tony Stark. And the reason why, because when that Skrull ship in space passed by the Sword base, Sword called up S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. called up Iron Man. And the reason why, because Iron Man is basically in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this moment in Marvel Comics. And so they're kind of like, hey man, listen, a random spaceship just crashed onto the Earth. And I feel like you in the Avengers may want to go see what in the world is going on. And so you do have Iron Man say, fine, I'll go check it out. I'm out, bye, and he leaves. Now, when he does leave to go see what in the world is going on, he does call up Spider-Woman. Now, you have to remember, Spider-Woman was actually on Luke Cage's new Avengers team. Because after Civil War, you had two Avengers team. One was the New Avengers, the other was the Mighty Avengers, where the New Avengers felt like the new law that the American government had made, which was to kind of police superheroes, was a bad law. And so they fought against the law. But the Mighty Avengers agreed with the law. Either way, though, Spider-Woman basically switched sides to the Mighty Avengers because her and the New Avengers found a Skrull Elektra, but she felt like Iron Man should know about this because just in case Iron Man is actually a Skrull as well. And so you have Spider-Woman take the body over to Iron Man, and then she switched sides to kind of be close to Iron Man to make sure that Iron Man is not a Skrull. But this is Iron Man calling her up and saying, hey, listen, we just got word that a Skrull ship just crashed onto Earth, and we have no idea what in the world could happen, but I want the entire Avengers team ready to go in a matter of a few minutes. Now, right after that phone call right there, you do have Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, basically call up Luke Cage. Now, the reason why you do have Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, basically call up Luke Cage, because right now, even though she's on the Mighty Avengers, she still feels like she's part of the New Avengers. But this is also Jessica Drew kind of saying like, listen, the reason why I'm calling you guys up right now to tell you that a Skrull ship just crashed onto the Earth, somewhere possibly in the Savage Land. Now, with that being said, I'm telling you guys first because I want to give you guys a head start. But on top of that, even though I did join the Mighty Avengers to be close to Iron Man to make sure he's not a Skrull, I don't trust him because he could be a Skrull. And so I want you guys, the New Avengers, to go investigate before Iron Man and his Avengers team goes to investigate. Because if you guys get there first, that's great. Because I know you guys are basically not Skrulls. And so you do have the New Avengers steal a Quinjet from the Mighty Avengers just to get a head start on the Mighty Avengers to figure out what in the world is going on with the Skrulls. Now, we actually do see Brian Michael Bendis begin the process of paying things off he did at the very beginning of New Avengers Volume 1. And what I mean by that is, basically, back in New Avengers Volume 1, what happened was the Avengers team before the New Avengers, they have disbanded. And that was thanks to Brian Michael Bendis. But then you had a new Avengers team come together because there was a huge breakout at one of the many prisons across America. But with that being said, with this breakout, you had heroes at that prison come together and they formed the New Avengers team. Now, right after that moment, moment, they went to the Savage Land, where they had discovered that there is a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that have gone rogue and were doing some dirty business on the side. Now, the new Avengers were able to shut down that entire thing. But here comes the big problem, though, because now back in the present day, you have the new Avengers arriving to the Savage Land, and Luke Cage was there at the last time they came to the Savage Land, where they fought against that rogue group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. But you have Luke Cage tell the new team members, things look different. This is not how we left the battle site. Like, yes, there were machines destroyed. Yes, there were a lot of damages done, but a lot of things look different. And that right there should tell you something is off. Either way, you do have Luke Cage and his team continue on to find that Skrull ship that crashed onto the Earth in the Savage Land. Now, when the new Avengers team are actually able to find a spaceship that had crashed onto the Earth, that is the moment you do have them be confronted by the mighty Avengers. Now, this could lead into one of those big battles between the two Avengers teams, but it's not like that at all. This is more of them coming together and realizing that there is something going on with the Skrulls, but at the same time, they cannot trust one another. Now, here is something else I have to mention. When it comes to Luke Cage and his new Avengers team, they know about the Skrulls going around kidnapping people and pretending to be those people. But when it comes to Iron Man, not everybody on his team actually knows that. And matter of fact, only like 2 people know about the Skrulls going around pretending to be people. That's Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, and also Spider-Woman. I want to say Black Widow as well, but I could be wrong. Either way, though, everybody on Luke Cage team knows about the Skrulls. Iron Man team, not everybody. Now back on the peak, the base that belongs to Sword, that right now you have Maria Hill, Abigail Brand, and also Dum Dum Dugan watching this conversation between Luke Cage and Tony Stark. And you have Maria Hill kind of confused on what in the world did Luke Cage means that he cannot trust Iron Man, or Iron Man is not truly who Iron Man actually is. And then you have Dum Dum Dugan say, oh, it's Luke Cage saying that Iron Man must be a Skrull. And that is the moment you have Dum Dum Dugan, or the fake Dum Dum Dugan, turn into his Skrull version himself, and he says he loves you. Now, of course, with them saying that key phrase right there, he loves you, that means things are going to pop off. And just like that, the entire Sword base just blows up. The peak is gone. Just like that, the defense system that was made to protect the Earth has just been wiped out. And things only get worse from here, because now with the peak being blown up, other things are about to pop off. And that is the moment we kind of find out Jarvis, the butler that belongs to Tony Stark, is not Jarvis. It is actually a Skrull. And you have Jarvis upload a virus that basically then runs through Iron Man's armor, shutting down Iron Man just like that. But things are still not done just yet, because even though Iron Man has now been affected, or really his armor has been affected, you have to remember, Iron Man, Tony Stark, was the one who made the Iron Man suit. He's a genius when it comes to making things. But at the same time, he also made different things for S.H.I.E.L.D. Because remember, Iron Man is the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so with that being said, that same virus that was uploaded to Iron Man's armor, yeah, it has now been uploaded to everything that belongs to S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a Skrull saying, okay, it's time for us now to basically pop off. And so right now, across the world, anything that is connected to Tony Stark's system has now been affected. And now you have a lot of different things going on left and right, especially like the raft, the prison that was made to hold a lot of super villains. Well, that raft just went offline. So now you have prisoners just being able to escape. Now, one of the prisoners that are actually escaping is going to be very important for later stories, and that is Marvel Boy. And he was a Kree that was basically captured by the Illuminati, I think. if I remember correctly, and he was locked up in the prison. And we saw that in New Avengers Illuminati, the storyline that basically kicked off our coverage of Secret Invasion. But that is the moment you do have Brian Michael Bendis kind of set up different things to happen in tie-ins left and right to kind of get a story more content, but to also say, hey, let's try to boost the sales for Marvel by giving us a bunch of different tie-ins that will fit perfectly into the main storyline for Secret Invasion. And what I mean by that is we actually jump over to Thunderbolts Mountain. Now, at this point right now, Norman Osborn is in charge of the Thunderbolts. He was not upgraded to the leader of Homeland Security just yet. And so right now he leads the Thunderbolts team. But right now you have the team in his office, and that is the moment the office does get blown up. And they are confronted by Marvel, Captain Marvel. Now, we actually already covered the Secret Invasion tie-in storyline for the Thunderbolts. But on top of that, we also covered what's going on with this Captain Marvel reappearing after being dead for so many years in Marvel Comics, and who actually is this Captain Marvel person pretending to be Marvel. But either way, in the Thunderbolts tie-ins, you do have the Thunderbolts fight against Marvel a tad bit till they lose. But right after that, you then have Brian Michael Bendis continue to build things up for Secret Invasion tie-ins. Now he jumps over to the Fantastic Four. Now the reason why, because we actually do pick up with Sue Richards, who is right now coming home to the Baxter Building. The problem is, though, when she does come home to the Baxter Building, she does go into the laboratory that belongs to Reed Richards. And that is a problem right there, because remember, Reed is one of the smartest people in the world. But on top of that, he does have a lot of different devices that are very dangerous, including the one you have Sue Storm turn on. But this tells us this is not Sue Storm, that this is another Skrull right now pretending to be Sue Storm and just turn on some kind of black hole that is going to suck up everything around this black hole into the black hole. But then getting back over to the New Avengers and the Mighty Avengers, because right now you do have both teams still at the site where, of course, that Skrull spaceship had crashed at. But on top of that, you have everybody wondering what in the world is going on with Iron Man. But things are about to continue to pop off, because that is the moment you do have the spaceship actually open up. And when it does, you do have a bunch of heroes walk out of the spaceship. Now, when these heroes do walk out of the spaceship, some of these heroes are the same heroes you're seeing on the other side right now. So basically, some of the heroes you have seen earlier who are part of the New Avengers or the Mighty Avengers, well, right now we're seeing two of them, and the second ones have came from the spaceship that crashed onto the Earth. On top of that, you have a Steve Rogers there, and that is huge. And the reason why, because Steve Rogers died in Civil War. He has not come back to life yet. And so right now, you have everybody believing, oh my God, is Steve Rogers alive again? Or these are heroes of different characters across the Marvel Universe who were basically kidnapped by the Skrulls, replaced by the Skrulls, and now they found a way to actually get away from the Skrulls, and so they crash onto the Earth. Who is really a Skrull here? The ones who have been on Earth the entire time are the ones who had just crashed onto the Earth, because apparently these heroes we're seeing right now stole the Skrull ship to get back to Earth. Now, you do have Abigail Brand and her sword agents kind of look out in space, and they realize something big is on its way. A lot of big things on its way right now to the Earth. And of course, it's many, and I mean many Skrull ships beginning the invasion on Earth, because now they're about to go full on out on attacking the Earth to kind of prove that the prophecy was true, that basically the Earth will sooner or later belong to the Skrulls. And if that happens, well, hey, they got a new planet. But to top off the first chapter of Secret Invasion, that is the moment we actually jump back over to Reed Richards and also Hank Pym. Now, of course, by reading this book, you can tell that one of these two characters had to be a Skrull, because with the Skrulls just popping off left and right and doing different things left and right, that means somebody here has to be a Skrull as well, because it makes no sense for the story to jump back over to these two guys who are just studying the body of the Skrull Elektra. But that is the moment we kind of find out that Hank Pym is actually a Skrull. And with that, you have this fake Hank Pym use a device to take out Reed Richards. So Reed was a Skrull, but now he has been taken out. But Hank Pym is a Skrull, and that right there is very huge. Now, as we dive into the second chapter, we actually pick up with the Mighty Avengers and the New Avengers right now being confronted by characters who look like Avengers characters who had just walked off the spaceship that had crashed on Earth. Now, I want you guys to realize something right here. Look at the screen right now. You do see that on one side, you do have the Avengers who we've been following in this entire event look like they're modern Marvel cells. But the ones who came off the spaceship, they look like classic Marvel characters. Now, this was done for two reasons. The first is to give you the ability to say, hey, you know what? I can tell who is who if these two sides get into a huge battle. But on top of that, it's playing with the idea of saying these people who are coming off the spaceship could be the real characters of Marvel Comics, the real Luke Cage, the real Steve Rogers, the real Spider-Man, meaning that there was a point in Marvel Comics that certain characters that we were actually following weren't the characters that we know of. There were Skrulls who were pretending to be the heroes that we thought we were following. Now, this also kind of plays in what we saw back in Captain Marvel Secret Invasion. Because remember, there was a Skrull who was turned into Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, Marvel. And at first, that Skrull believed that he was actually Marvel. It was just that he was pulled out of time into the present day. But in reality, he was a Skrull. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up right now, because right now you do have some people who could possibly be on the New Avengers or the Mighty Avengers who were Skrulls who were turned to heroes, and they believe so badly that they are, let's say, Luke Cage or Spider-Man. They have no idea that they are Skrulls. But then the real Spider-Man and the real Luke Cage actually appear thanks to the spaceship crashing onto Earth. But this brings a whole lot more questions. But with that being said, though, it leads into a big battle between the two sides. Now, you also have to remember that the Mighty Avengers also have the Sentry. Now, that is huge because the Sentry is a very powerful character who could really just end this entire battle just in like 10 seconds. But for right now, he can't do that. But you do have Brian Michael Bendis kind of remove the Sentry. And what happens is that you have the Vision appear. Now, the last time we saw the Vision in Marvel Comics by this point, the dude was ripped in half by She-Hulk. And with that happening, Vision was no longer online. I take that back. I think he was online, and I think he was with the Young Avengers by this point. Either way, you do have a Vision that came off the spaceship that had crashed onto the Earth. And you have this Vision right now coming to the Sentry say, hey, I'm the Void. And thanks to you and we made all of this happen because your future is to wipe everything out across the universe completely out of existence. Now remember, when it comes to the Void is like a dark being inside the Sentry. And if that dark being is able to get out completely, it literally means the end of the entire universe, possibly the multiverse. And so with that being said, you have the Void talking to the Sentry to kind of bring the barrier down to hopefully finally be released and to actually wipe things out across the universe. The thing is, though, the Vision who attacked the Sentry is actually a Skrull who just knew what to say to make the Sentry fly away, because the Skrulls had studied almost every single powerhouse character or every single smart person who could affect the outcome of this invasion. But then we have to get back into the big battle, but I really want to focus on one character, and that character is Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Now, by this point in Marvel Comics, he was not Clint Barton. Matter of fact, he was going by the name Ronin because he died in Avengers Disassembled, but then he was brought back to life after House of M. Either way, he kind of gave up the name Hawkeye and called himself the Ronin. Now, with that being said, though, you do have right now Clint Barton just shooting arrows left and right. Instead of trying to find a peaceful way to realize who can he trust and who he cannot trust, he's just shooting arrows left and right. If you bleed red, you're on our side. If you bleed green, you're not on our side. And so right now it's him making sure to see who is who and who he can trust. Now, on top of that, though, we do have Steve Rogers here. Now, this is huge because after Civil War, Steve Rogers died, and Clint Barton took that the hardest because he looked up to Steve Rogers. They were close friends. And so now you have this Steve Rogers just running around. It's now playing with the idea, wait a second, is the Steve Rogers we saw back in Civil War, was that the real Steve Rogers or was that a Skrull? And so now that question is just floating out there now. Now, you do have Carol Danvers take Tony Stark somewhere away from the battle. And the reason why, because remember, his armor was affected by the virus that the Skrulls had to shut down anything that was made by Tony Stark. But you do have Tony tell Carol Danvers, you have to go back to the mainland, go back to America, get any other heroes you can and bring them here to basically help us out, to defend the Earth from this invasion. Now, he does tell her to leave him there because he has to rework his entire system. He has to start from scratch because with that virus in there, his armor shut down. Any kind of Stark weapon that he could possibly use has been shut down. And so he has to restart or rebuild everything from scratch just to give himself and the heroes the chance to fight against the Skrulls. Now, we actually jump back over to the big battle. Now, when we actually do that, this leads into a very important question with the idea of who can you trust and who can you not trust? Now, the reason why that question is floating around for a lot of different reasons, because remember, you had the Mighty Avengers and the New Avengers arrive in the Savage Land. When that spaceship opened up, you had a bunch of Avenger characters walk off that spaceship claiming that they were the real ones. And so the question of who can you trust and who can you not trust is floating around really hard right now, especially on Mockingbird. Now remember, Mockingbird was a character who was deeply in love with Hawkeye, and matter of fact, she died, if I remember correctly. So with that being said, with her being here, it's kind of like, wait a second, is this a Skrull or not a Skrull? Because she died years ago. Now, this is for Clint Barton to decide, hey, is it really her or not? Because this could be a Skrull trick to just bring down the guard of Clint Barton. But at the same time, it could be Mockingbird, and he wants to make sure it is her so that he can finally be with her once again. And so he does ask her one particular question like, hey, to figure out if you're not a Skrull, what happened on October 12th? And when she answered the question, we kind of find out that she had an abortion. And with that abortion, it basically tells Hawkeye that it has to be her because only her and him knew about that abortion. A miscarriage. I'm sorry, my bad. That basically she had a miscarriage. Either way, though, it tells Hawkeye, oh my gosh, that's my wife or ex-lover, whatever she was to him. That has to be her because only me and her knew about that moment, which means she's not a Skrull. she's actually Mockingbird. Now for Wolverine, it's kind of like, are you sure though? Because she could be a Skrull still who just knew that one particular memory. But to go ahead and wrap up today's video, we actually pick up with the Young Avengers in Manhattan. Now, the reason why we actually pick up with them right now, because remember, in the last chapter, Susan Storm turned on some kind of black hole device in the middle of New York. And so with her doing that right there, you have a lot of different things being sucked into this black hole type weapon. Now, you do have the Young Avengers wondering what can they do to handle that black hole. But that is the moment you do have a bunch of Skrull ships appear. And when they do appear, they release a bunch of, well, Skrulls who have different powers of different characters of Marvel characters on Earth. So like Sony's Skrulls have powers of the X-Men, or Fantastic Four, or the Avengers. It's now the Skrulls going ahead and doing a full-on invasion to wipe out the human race and take over the Earth. It's right now seems like the end of the entire Earth. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So with that being said, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time. Later, guys.